Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. We have a popular and returning guest who I will introduce momentarily. First, wanted to give thanks, as always, to our sponsors, Chessable.com. Friend of the pod, Anna-Maya Kazarian, who our guest recently saw at the Olympiad, is out with a new course, I believe her first course, starting out 1E4, E5. So if you're newer to chess and looking to learn double king pawn, it's getting good reviews, so be sure to check out Anna-Maya's work. Also, little reminder, I'm a big fan of our guest Chessable course, as I recommended in my book, Endgame Studies 101. Obviously, it's a hot button topic, how helpful endgame studies are or are not for your calculation skills. I think they're pretty helpful. And as I mentioned in my book, Kostya's course is a great primer, especially if you're rated, say, 1200 to 1800 range, something like that. So as for our guest, I already gave it away, and you probably saw it in the title, but he's an author, he's a YouTuber, trainer, Chess Dojo co-founder. He's now got a Substack blog, which was part of the reason that we reconnected, and he's a many-time guest, was one of the original guests here. So always happy to welcome back to the program, Chess Dojo's I am Kostya Kavutskiy. Welcome, Kostya.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be back. Looking forward to catching up. Always a pleasure. I continue to enjoy your podcast, so it's really cool to be on.
Appreciate it as always, Kostya. Yeah, and I've been enjoying following your travels. It's hard to keep up. You're gallivanting all over Europe. You're hitting up the Olympiad, and you wrote a great blog post about that, which we will eventually discuss. But I want to start with chess improvement, both your own and our listeners. So you launched this blog called Kostya Goes for GM. Obviously, this is something we've talked about in the past. And I'm sure it's one of your most FAQ'd questions, your GM pursuit. But it seems like you're stepping up the intensity a little bit. You're trying to hold yourself accountable, playing more frequently. So what brought this about, Kostya?
Yeah, basically, I don't know, like around a month ago or so, I realized that I do want to still go for the GM title. Like, it's still like a huge goal, huge dream of mine. It'd be a huge accomplishment. I feel like if I got that, that's it, like fantastic for the end of my life. Like, I'd be so happy with this one achievement. But it is a very difficult task to do. And I realized that, like, I just have to stay focused on it if I have any chance of getting there. And so I was trying to figure out the best way to kind of keep myself focused on it, like using some kind of like accountability thing. And then I thought about a lot of different formats, like keeping like a journal, a written journal, online journal, public, private, this kind of thing. Eventually, I just realized, like, I need some kind of log to just log when I'm training, so that I'm keeping myself focused on the journey. And I felt like it'd be cool to share it as well, because it would motivate me to keep doing it. And then if I stop doing it, then I'd have to, explain to people and to myself why I'm no longer kind of like keeping up with my training.
Yeah, these forced accountability measures are often quite helpful. So again, the blog is called, or Substack, for those of you familiar, they're just a blogging network that makes it pretty easy to subscribe and get an email whenever someone subscribes. So Kostya's is called Kostya Goes for GM. I'll link to it to make it easy to subscribe. Mine, of course, is called the Perpetual Chess Link Fest, where I just link to stuff like Kostya's. And Kostya, I heard your interview with I am Sagar Shah of ChessBase India, and you didn't sugarcoat the difficulty of this task. But for listeners who did not check out this interview, I mean, how would you describe the challenge laying before you now that you've decided to re-engage on this challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard. Like, it's always been very hard. I think back when I was at like my peak rating around 2420, I was already like very far away from the goal. And I've only kind of tanked my rating since then. Recently, I had a nice event in Italy, so my most recent performance was pretty solid. But yeah, for the most part, I'm like further away than I was before. And like, I'm older, and like I have more stuff to do now, and like, this whole thing. So yeah, I feel like it's only gotten harder, if anything, or I'm only further away. But yeah, I don't know. I still feel like there's a chance I can do it, and it's a nice goal to pursue. Like, I still enjoy the process of improving at chess, and I still like chess and playing chess and studying and like learning new ideas. And especially being able to just like play OTB for me is like a huge pleasure still. So for me personally, as long as I feel like I'm improving or still like striving towards improvement, I'm happy. But of course, I feel like, yeah, you need, I don't know, I think it's nice to have a goal that you're working towards. But yeah, it's optimistic. I don't know. I think like it's really hard to get the title, even if you're like super talented and young already, as it is.
Right.
So, it's like chances are certainly against.
Yeah, I mean, obviously all the people I've interviewed over the years going for the GM title, most don't make it. I mean, it seems like, your friend Jesse Cry is one of the few cases of someone who like grinded for it,
Right.
I mean, the stories are out there for sure, but it's certainly the exception rather than the rule, because as many people have said, yourself included, it's degrees of magnitude harder than earning even the IM title. And as you alluded to, I mean, your rating's down, which you're not a weaker player, right? It's just that's the way the wind has blown these days.
Yeah, I would hope so. That's what I keep telling myself. There's deflation out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely feel it if you play a lot of like open events and you play a lot of like underrated kids. And it's not even like a subjective thing. Like if someone's USCF is 2,300 and their FIDE is 1,800, they're underrated.
Right.
Like it's not, there's no debate there. But yeah, that's what happens. But I think a lot of people's ratings have taken a hit. So that's actually given me some small motivation. A lot of like really strong players, like 2,600s, even higher, and they're now like 2,500, under 2,500. So a lot of people have kind of taken a hit in the chess world. So yeah, it's given me. It's kind of like this thing in the King's Indian where the engine always evaluates positions better for white. So you have to kind of take that into account.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, maybe like the rating is not such a huge deal right now, as long as you keep playing, keep gaining experience.
Yeah, graded on a curve these days, for sure. And of course, FIDE made these changes to the rating. They did the one-time adjustment where everyone over 2,000 gets bonus points. This happened at the beginning of the year. I haven't been playing FIDE tournaments very actively, so I can't speak to this. But obviously, they're trying to correct like a many-year problem. So it would need to work its way through the system. Do you see any difference yet this year with that bonus having been implemented?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I haven't like felt it personally. I feel like at some point it should kind of float up. We had chess numbers on our pod a little while back. I think to explain the boost, and he was saying that it's mainly gonna. Sorry, as I understand that it's mainly going to like counter like the existing deflation. So it's like it's meant to, I guess, prevent the problem from getting worse, but not necessarily like reverse and like start giving people a bunch of extra points, as far as I understood.
Yeah, because like take me as an example. Like I was there was one point where it's 2,200 FIDE, back in the Stone Ages. Then I'd settled in around 2,100. And I was down to I am down to the 1900s, just from playing. And my USCF rating basically didn't go anywhere in that period. Like it didn't. And these are USCF events. I'm not playing in FIDE. So to your point of there being a lot of 2,200 USCFs were like 1,700 FIDE. That's what happened to me. And now I was just low enough to get 40 points. I don't even look at my FIDE rating. It's too depressing for me. So I think I went from like 1950 to 1990 or something in that neighborhood. But it's like, that's the tip of the iceberg for what I lost, And I'm sure there are plenty of other people like me who could whine about it. But anyway, just illustrates that, yeah, I mean, this might halt the decline, as you allude to Ty Pruce Zimmerman, Chess by the Numbers saying, but in terms of actually fixing it, remains to be seen. And, when you were telling Sagar Shah that Jesse, GM Jesse Cry, Chess Dojo co-founder, you said he's in the 2,300s?
Yeah, he has been for
that's nuts,
some time.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. No, it's funny. All three of us, like me, Jesse, David Pruitt as well, we've all kind of, since the pandemic, we started off as very different ratings. Then we all kind of converged into this like 23XX rating.
Yeah. And I haven't checked in with Jesse for a bit, but I know he trained hard for the US seniors. Shout out to Jesse. Was happy that he made it. And he had a good result there, right?
Oh, he did great. He got second. He won his last 4 games. I think by performance he got a GM norm. Actually, it wasn't like a new one, but like still.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that just goes to show you, it's not like he's just showing up and going through the motions. So yeah, but anyway, I mean, as we've talked about on the pod before, like ultimately we have to measure ourselves by things beyond the number or the letters next to our name. But on the other hand, it's, as you say, it's more motivating to play when you have a goal in mind. But let's zoom out a little bit, Kostya, because you did just play a bunch of tournaments, as you said, most recently having some success in Italy. And I'm loving the blog. It's a great way to keep up with it because, as I've told you before, I love your video recaps, but I don't always, I don't always have the time to, well, I have the time. Everyone has the time for everything. But I don't always get to your videos. So what are your primary lessons learned from this recent, like, super busy spate of tournaments?
Right. Yeah. So the video recaps is an interesting point because I used to do these quite frequently, and yeah, lately I don't know. I feel like they take up too much energy during the tournament, especially if you're playing 2 rounds per day. Then like forget about it. I think it's totally insane. So yeah, the written recaps have been nice because they are pretty quick, and it's a way for me to just like really briefly reflect on the game at the end of the night. Post one diagram. And then send it off. And it gives me closure on the game. And when you're playing 1 round per day, it's totally doable. And I don't know, I feel like it's kind of nice. So my recent 2 events, so I played one in Portugal, the Maya Open, which had a bunch of streamers there. So that was a very fun event. And then a week later, I played the Small Open in Italy on the coast in Monte Silvano, which incidentally actually hosts a lot of events. Like they hosted, I believe, some World Cadet Championship last year. I think they're hosting this year's, like either the World Cadet or the World Youth. So it's a funny little like just resort town in Italy with not a bunch of people. But I don't know. I got to say, I really enjoy the format of European events when it's like 1 round per day. For me, it's like I can rest up for each game. And when I play 2 rounds per day, as I'm used to in the US, I just feel like I always hate the second game. I'm just always exhausted for it.
Yeah.
So in general, I feel like I do better in these 1 round per day events because I just have more energy throughout, and I can like really kind of prepare well for each game, and it's just much more enjoyable. So I don't know. I just think that something about that lends me to do better. In Portugal, actually, I started off really well. I started off with 4-4. And I defeated a Grandmaster in the 4th round. Then I lost this game in round 5. Very like beautiful game to Grandmaster Michalewski. The game was so nice. In fact, Jesse made a video on it about our channel. So he was very, very impressed with this game. But to be fair, it was a very nice idea. And then from there, my tournament kind of slid a bit, and I ended up, I think, losing a point or 2 of rating. And then my second event in Italy went much better. I didn't lose a game, and I almost won the tournament. In fact, I ended up tying for first. But I could have won had I won in the last round or in the penultimate round. I had like a lot of chances in the event. So somehow a lot of things clicked for me in this Italy event. I'm not sure what it was exactly. Like, okay, it was a nice environment, and my opponents, I think, were not the most scariest opponents. Basically, I'm only scared of someone if they're like an IM and GM and they're younger than me. That's the only fearsome opponent. Anyone else, it's like fair game.
even the like 1800 Indian teenager, if I may profile for a moment.
Those, okay, yeah, like the younger players, they scare me a bit as well. But I feel like if they haven't gotten their rating yet, then maybe they haven't truly gotten their experience yet as well. So I feel like I still have a chance against them. But So
the IM, the 2300 IM, still has a chance against an 1800 Indian teenager. Glad to hear it.
That's how I approach it. Yeah, I feel like if I play my best, I can maybe win a good game.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. And maybe, as to your point, maybe the system is changing a little bit. Like there can't just be, I mean, there has been, for those less familiar, in India, they have a lot of events aren't FIDE rated, and then as players get stronger, they start to travel to Europe to play. So they start out with these super low ratings. But and obviously chess is booming in India, as you wrote about in your blog post, as we'll get to later. But there does seem like these things should ebb and flow in theory. It shouldn't just be like an absolutely relentless tide, It might slow down at some point, but
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say it's not just India. There's many underrated players from China, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Ukraine, pretty much all over. So yeah, there's no shortage. I mean, maybe that's part of choosing good events is trying to avoid events with lots of these hungry young players. So for example, like the last tournament I would want to play is like an IM norm event with like 6 hungry IM norm seekers and like me.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But okay, but bigger picture lessons. I mean, it sounds like you had a decent tournament and a better tournament in Italy, but is there anything that you come away with from these tournaments that you're like, oh, I need to work on such and such?
Oh, for sure. I think lately a lot of what I've been thinking about is just being consistent with training and just doing regular work. Specifically, I mean, at my level, I think it's just like solving calculation exercises, like going through books like Agard, the Shanklin book, the Oleksienko book, the Turbocharge Your Tactics, the Dvoretsky books, basically just like these really tough like exercise books, just being really consistent and just doing your training with them. I think something like an hour a day for me just feels super important. And just like staying active, basically, just trying to stay in good form. Beyond that, I mean, there's plenty of stuff I need to work on. The big thing for me has always been technique, like working on converting positions, which is tough. I'm still working on it, but it's because it's almost like a pure mindset thing. It's just like I had one game in Italy where I was winning just like a beautiful game, and like I played so well and I worked so hard to get a winning position, and I didn't relax until the very end. And then I realized it wasn't the very end, and I blundered a trick, and I had relaxed, and I messed it up, and I ended up drawing that game. And it's like, I do that kind of thing a lot, where it's like I just kind of relax a moment too soon, and I'm not sure exactly how to work on that, other than just being super conscious about it and like improving my calculation, improving my end games, improving my skill in general.
Yeah. So all phases of the game. I mean, that's about what I expected to go from IM to GM. If there were low-hanging fruit, you wouldn't be an IM. So it makes sense, a little bit of everything and particular emphasis on tactics. Speaking of tactics, Kostya, so we have a few questions from a Patreon sub. Thank you to Igor Feinstein for helping to support Perpetual Chess. And this one is related to his own tactics practice. We'll start with this one. He says, I play quite a bit of puzzle battles on chess.com, and I'm stuck in terms of my rating, which is usually in the 17 to 1800s. Is there a correlation between ability to solve relatively easy puzzles quickly and ability to solve more difficult ones?
Is there a correlation? Yeah, okay. Actually, interesting question. So, I guess there's two questions there. Like, is the easy puzzles contribute to being able to solve more challenging ones? And then also, how do I get out of this rut? So
right.
I'll tackle both of them. So for the first one, I think actually it's two different things. I think simple puzzles lend themselves to building up your pattern recognition. So this is stuff like Puzzle Rush, Puzzle Battle, Lichess's Puzzle Storm, Puzzle Racer. It's all kind of the same thing. Those are important, especially at lower levels, because I think simple tactics are going to be the most common for players, let's say up to 2000 online level. You just have to mainly work on your simple basic tactics, basic combinations as much as you can. But there comes a certain point around this range, 1800, 2000, where, you have to start learning how to think deeper about the game. So I don't know if this person plays a lot of classical chess or if they're mainly like, online, like Blitz and Rapid Player. But training your deep calculation is definitely like a different skill. It's a different skill set. And so it's more about being patient with a position, being able to look at a position and kind of like search for options without knowing what you're looking for exactly. That's kind of maybe a main difference between that and the quicker puzzle rush stuff is that that's more just relying on your pattern recognition. Either you know the pattern or you don't. And if you do, then you'll see it quickly. If you don't, you won't see it quickly, but then you can, go over the problem and learn from it. In terms of improving your tactical ability, I mean, I think in general, like if anyone feels stuck and they're doing the same thing over and over again, it's just like a sign to try something else, like trying some slower puzzles. I'm sure chess.com, Chessable, they have some good courses with like longer calculation puzzles, plenty of books out there as well. Just working on being able to solve a puzzle that has multiple variations is, I think, very, very important. Briefly, I'll just plug the dojo's new tactics testing trainer, because we built an app that's kind of designed more for this kind of thing, where instead of just inputting a one move at a time for a puzzle, you're given a position and then you're asked to just input all of the variations yourself, including moves for the opponent. And then you're graded based on how well or how many lines you found, how accurately you saw everything. So this is kind of like our take on how to work on like the deeper calculation stuff, because the online puzzle trainers don't really lend themselves to that, because you're making one move at a time. It tells you if it's wrong or not. It only gives you one defense, and then you have to like figure out what to do. So that's a lot simpler than having to figure something out from the starting position, having to visualize everything.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, that's immensely needed in the chess market, I would say. So, yeah, you guys are doing a great job coming up with new innovations all the time. And we should have said probably at the beginning, Kostya, just for anyone who has not heard your handful of other interviews here on Perpetual Chess or experienced any of your other vast media outreach, that we should explain what the Chess Dojo is briefly, which as a member I can do, or you can do whatever you prefer.
Sure. I mean, basically it's an online site. It's a community. It's a place where people go to sign up to improve their chess. We've been, for the past couple of years, myself, Grandmaster Jesse Cry, I'm David Pruis. We've been kind of like building this community that's based on like working hard and training with other players, sparring, really like going into the more, it's called like fundamental aspects of chess improvement, like the traditional ways of improving, reading books. And we built the site, ChessDojo.club. And it's basically our way of helping people improve their chess. It started off as just like a training plan, just like a list of tasks for things people should do, like read this book, play these positions, solve these problems, and so on. But now it's actually evolving into much, much more. So I'm very excited about that. This is the thing that's in the way of my GM journey, is that the dojo is just such an exciting thing to work towards. And it's not they're not always exactly coherent with one another. But what it's evolving to now actually is just kind of like a chess dashboard. Like it's a place where you can log in, you can see all your ratings in one spot, like your online ratings, your over the board ratings, and see them like tracked. You have a place to store your games. Actually, just the other day we added Stockfish to the site, which is very exciting. It's a big move for us. A lot of people are unhappy that we added the engine, but now you can essentially annotate and upload your games all on the site, and you can store them there. So we're trying to like replace ChessBase low key by giving people just a place to store their games, their opening analysis as well. They can check the database, and then. We've got the training plan, which is again like the list of tasks that we suggest. We have this new like tactics trainer thing. So we're basically just trying to build like this like online dojo essentially, where you come and then you can just improve your chess all throughout the site.
Yeah, and it's amazing you guys are coming up with all these like innovations in sort of the improvement sphere, because it feels like there've been so many in the chess world already in the past 15 years. But as I wrote in my book, I mean, to me, the primary value and the most important thing is the community that you guys provide. Obviously, there are other places online to find this sort of thing as well. But the idea that you have like, these Discord channels where you find segmented rating bands where like you can talk about what you're going through, and you guys do the graduates thing for people who manage to level up. So I think that's the thing that if you're just pursuing things on your own, it's harder to find if you don't actively seek it out, and it's easy to give up if you don't have other people to bounce ideas off of. So it was a good idea, and I'm glad to see it going well. So you told Sagar you're up to like 1,800 paid members, is that right?
Yeah. But you're right. At its heart, the dojo is basically a place for people to go and find like other like-minded individuals to train with. It kind of started off as like the Discord, and the Discord server is definitely a huge part of it, because that's where people go and they can discuss like their ideas and schedule training games and all this stuff. Our community is slowly growing. We're trying to get to 2,000 members. Road to 2,000 for the site. They're definitely like a lot of them have essentially built the dojo. Like a lot of our stuff comes from people in the community, literally building stuff for us, whether it's like little apps or widgets or things like that. It really helps to have a bunch of people around.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, another chess improvement question from Igor. This is another classic question, Kostya, but we'll get your take on it. He says, given the plethora of new high-quality chess books constantly coming out, is there still room for classic chess books? For example, Vukovic's Art of Attack, which was published in the 60s. He knows it's one of your top 10 favorite books.
That's funny. I have the opposite bias. I'm like, is there any room for new books? There's so many great books that have been written already. Actually, I was just thinking about books this morning, because I figured we would talk about them at some point. The only book I'm really excited about right now is the Woodpecker 2, because I haven't had a chance to go through it, but it looks fantastic. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, they did a great job.
Very, very jealous of it. Yeah, it's a great idea, and I think Axel has done really good with his books before in terms of execution. I like the first Woodpecker, obviously. And I actually think this is going to be maybe even like a new trend for books and courses, is to really focus more on like ideas and just learning like these like quick like little patterns. I think that's going to be super useful. But I think all the old books is where it's at. Like Art of Attack, amazing book. I would recommend that, for like most players between, let's say, 1,500 and 2,200. I think it's like super, super useful.
I read that one in my formative years. And yeah, that one's on Chessable now too. And so many of these books, like Endgame Strategy, that one, like it's like they've been updated and improved too. But I mean, it's a golden age for chess, because I know you were excited for this one, but I mean, most of the books I managed to read are people that I interview. And, if someone's book isn't great, I'm not going to like have them on and tell them their book is crap. But at the same time, I might be slightly less effusive. But like every author I've interviewed recently, and even ones I'm getting to, like the books are great. Like Tiger's Chaos Theory is a really fun read, and it's for strong players. Like, so that one, Kostya, if you're just looking for something to read in bed with some creative ideas and would help you with your training as well, like that one's great. I'm reading the Morphy biography. I'm interviewing Charles Hertan shortly. It's great, like learning so much about Paul Morphy. The other chess history one by Sam Khan, who I recently interviewed, is really fun to get to know all these personalities. But yeah, in terms of like actual chess improvement, the Woodpecker 2, they crushed it. So, I mean, and I agree with what you're saying about the old books too. So it's just like, time is the only scarce resource, it's not quality chess books.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, actually, I am very interested in the Tiger book. I love his stuff. I think he's a fantastic player. And author. So I will check that one out. But yeah, in terms of books for improvement, it's like, it's hard to improve on the classics. But there's lots of books that are, I would say, more interesting for like higher levels, or just interesting from like a chess culture standpoint, like just learning more about like the players and how their lives work, which is also useful for chess improvement. I think to some degree, it's like always cool to read those kinds of books for like motivation, like inspiration type stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And Tiger, like, he took up serious chess, as I talked about in my interview with him. Like, I mean, he was already like an FM, but at 26, he's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do nothing but chess and see what happens.
Nice.
So he's like a late bloomer, which is always inspiring as well. Getting back to the GM chase, one other thing I wanted to ask you about it, Kostya, is like how closely you follow Levy's journey.
Quite a bit. Actually, I took huge inspiration from his recent jump back into the thing, because it showed that because he's super busy. Like I would say he's probably busier than me in terms of like the non-chess like business side. And he found a way, like he managed to like get serious, train, do like the fitness stuff as well, choose tournaments, travel, hire coaching, and he managed to make it work. And then he had some great results. So it seems like he really bounced back. And he got out, from the depths of the 2300s. So,
right,
so it's very inspirational.
It like once he put his nose to the grindstone, he did it quickly,
Yeah, and he's playing, these like New York round robin events with all these hungry kids. So he's not like shying away from the shark infested waters of these round robin events, which are very dangerous. Granted, he had a bad one, but still, I think it shows a good mindset that he doesn't really care about the short term. He's just trying to improve in the long term. So yeah, I definitely take a lot of inspiration from him.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously he's been getting some coaching, both from GM Arthur's Nixons and a secret one who Agard wouldn't reveal to me. Are you getting any coaching, Kostya? Is that something you're thinking about?
Yeah, actually, I had some coaching since June. I did a number of lessons, and I mean, I feel like they were useful. It's hard to say exactly. They were definitely kind of grounding and focusing. Like when you're working with a strong player every week or every couple of weeks, you really want to show them that you're doing work on your own, and taking into account what they're telling you. But yeah, I think for people that have the resources, I think coaching is very, very, very useful, because it's really nice to have someone that holds you accountable and is in your corner and like kind of telling you like, here's what to work on, here's what you should do. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone deep down knows like if they want to get better at chess, they just need to start spending like an hour every morning, just like doing some training, and then maybe more if they can, but just trying to like dedicate some time like every single day. But I think it's much easier and more effective when you have like a trained professional that's like really pushing you and then giving you the right material and just supporting you on your journey. So to me, it feels like it's a good thing to have.
And it's another accountability thing. Like, as I think about it, part of the reason I fell off the wagon again is because I'm not getting coaching right now, it's like because then you have to tell them, well, I didn't do anything this week, it's rather embarrassing, but yeah, hopefully you can keep it up. And we were chatting briefly before we recorded. So obviously you just played this big handful of tournaments and you're busy with dojo. So you've got a small break on the horizon before back to the OTP grind.
Yeah, I've got no tournament scheduled for like 2 months or so. I might play sometime in December. I'm not really sure yet. But yeah, I played a lot over the summer, and I feel like it's healthy after you've played a lot to then take a break, kind of decompress, review a bunch of your games, and then just take time to like work on your weaknesses. I think it's nice to kind of just chill and work on chess without worrying about results for a while and just playing. And then, yeah, my plan would be to just kind of like choose my tournaments when I get back, maybe trying to play like 2-3 events in a row when I feel like I'll be in good form. Yeah, so I'm going to be in St. Louis for the next couple of months or so. We have US championships coming up, which I'll probably be doing recaps for the club. And then there's going to be the Chess 9LX event, or Chess 960. And yeah, so basically I'll just be in town, just like training, probably get back to like streaming, doing content. And yeah, just the usual like balance of chess and then non-chess work.
Yeah. And are you enjoying, so for listeners not familiar, Kostya, Californian, lived there for a long time and then moved to St. Louis in the past few years. It's obviously has its perks. There are times you're like, posting pictures of like Fabiano in a blitz tournament with 25 people, et cetera. Like, are you enjoying life there when you are there?
Yeah, definitely. I basically moved here a little bit after the pandemic, mainly because I was missing having a lot of like over the board chess action. Like I didn't have a ton of people to play or train with where I was living. And so, yeah, and I was already doing a lot of work for the St. Louis Chess Club. So I was flying out here anyways. But yeah, it's nice. I live near the club. There are a ton of people around always visiting. So there's like always like plenty of chess players to interact with, which is cool. I kind of see it as like a home base from where I can like go and travel. Like my folks and stuff are out in California still, so I can go back to Cali. I'm a little bit closer to Europe where I can play events. I'm closer to like the East Coast, like Charlotte and New York, so it's not too hard to get there as well. So
yeah, and rent's probably what, nice. Like half of Northern Cali.
And yeah, the rent is better, yeah, compared to California. Surprisingly, it was a lot better actually. Yeah, so that someone who works from home mostly, really just like from my laptop. It made sense to kind of live somewhere that was cheap.
Cool. Yeah, it definitely seems like a lot of fun. Eric Rosen there often, along with all the big shot players like Levon and so on. But let's talk some Olympiad, Kostya. So after Kostya's tournament in Italy, he, just as a fan / freelance goodwill reporter, stopped by the Olympiad. And then you wrote this amazing blog post, which I was really impressed with, because it's one thing, as you said, to jot down, okay, here's a key position, here are a few lessons I learned, I should have done this in this position. But these blog posts take a lot of work, and you wrote this very detailed, well-written 12 reflections, 12 observations from your time at the Olympiad. And this was your first Olympiad. So before I'll prime you on a few of your bullet points, but just big picture, worthwhile to go to the Olympiad, you would say?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, like as a fan, it was fantastic. And yeah, thankfully it wasn't too expensive because I was already in Europe. It was in Budapest. So it was like, I hadn't even booked my return flight yet when I landed in Europe. And then I was traveling with the Chess Nerd, who's also a content creator. So shout out to Zach. But basically it was his idea. He was going to Budapest anyway. And he was like, why don't you come along if you have nothing better to do? I'm like, why don't I come along?
Yeah.
And definitely super memorable. I mean, I followed a bunch of Olympiads and they always seem cool, but yeah, to see it in person, like everyone in the same room and they're all like with their flags and their uniforms. And it's like, you really feel like how important of an event it is for like so many teams. Like it's the only event for them in 2 years that matters for a lot of players. So it's, it was just a very, very cool experience. And yeah, that article, thank you for praising it, because it was multiple days of
work. I could tell. Yeah. I mean, as someone who like always hits publish and then immediately discovers 3 typos, like it was, in addition to being well written, like I didn't immediately discover 3 typos. So although on Substack, at least like you can correct them, but you can't undo the email, so it's like, it's a mixed bag. One quick follow up on the Chess Nerd. Obviously I've never had the chance to interview him, but I follow his content a bit. Canadian kid, makes great content, strong player who went to either grad school or undergrad in Amsterdam, right? Like he moved to Amsterdam, right?
That's right. Basically did a year of school in Amsterdam.
Okay. Now is he still in Amsterdam, or what's going on with him living wise?
Yeah, I think he's still there. I think he is planning on returning to Canada at some point, like maybe the end of this year. But basically like he's finishing up his year now.
Okay. And on the chess grind in the meantime. Okay, so let's get to some of your takeaways from the Olympiad. Number 1, turns out India is good at chess. Could you reflect on that?
Yeah, who would have thought? I mean, it's kind of remarkable to see, just like they basically played like without nerves. It felt like they didn't show any signs of weakness. And so, I mean, it wasn't actually a huge surprise to see them win. Like I picked them to win. Zach picked them to win. A lot of people picked them to win. So it was kind of known. But they just like they played so well.
Like, it was dominant. Really, yeah, absolutely dominant performance.
That was right. And the women too also just like performed fantastically. It wasn't like, it was definitely much closer, but still, I mean, to get the double golds and like multiple members on your team get like individual gold medals, I mean, that is just huge.
Yeah, yeah, and I was happy for them, the Indian team, because unlike, I mean, neither country has ever won the Olympiad, but as you say, like for the Open, it was kind of like a coronation at some point. I mean, they were just so far ahead, but for the women, they've been close so many times, and obviously, it was extremely tightly packed going into the last round. So for them to pull it off and have the additional story of both teams winning it is inspiring stuff, and they were well compensated by the government, as it turned out. I linked to this on my newsletter, but someone made a little table on Reddit of like how much money they were rewarded by the government, and upwards of $50,000 for like every team member and trainer, both on the Open and the women's team, which you love to see, and it's well deserved. Okay, some other hot takes. U.S. team is not particularly popular at the Olympiad. So this made sense when you wrote it, but I wouldn't have thought of it. So you just heard some grumbling?
Yeah, it was also just very clear if you looked at the online space, like on chess Twitter, like any post about India would instantly just go viral and get tons of shares and likes. And any similar posts about the US team would kind of fall flat. And so like people just not very excited, which is unfortunate because I think like, I don't know, I like the US team quite a bit. I think there's controversial, of course, because of like the player transfers and that's the whole thing. But you know, I like all the players on the team, and so I definitely am always going to root for them. But it kind of felt like they're like the New York Yankees, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. For international listeners, that's like the baseball team with the most money that has a reputation historically of buying all the best players, which makes them not as fun to root for. So yeah, clear through line. And yeah, I share your overall impression. You know, I've had, you know, in my limited interactions with people like Aronian and Fabiano, they've been all class, and I certainly root for them. But you know, the U.S. Well, Fabiano, of course, I think some people don't think this. I think he absolutely belongs on playing for the U.S. anyway, having spent formative years in Brooklyn before he moved to Europe as a teen. But people like Levon and Wesley So, who didn't grow up in the U.S. and may have come here for financial reasons, like it does, as I've talked about with people like Sam Shanklin and now with Hans Niemann, like they're young players who are not getting an opportunity, or established players in Sam's case. So it cuts that way, and also I think for the other countries. But now, I mean, it's like, with what's going on in the Russia-Ukraine, you've got so many Russians representing different countries. You've got Russians who can't play. It just seems like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like, do you have any potential solutions to people who feel like there should be sort of more connection between players and the countries they're representing?
Yeah, it's really tough. And I would say, the U.S. is not the only country that struggles with this. Like, I'm pretty sure like England has the same issue because they had Vitugov, who now plays for their top board,
right.
Which basically kicked off an English player like on the team, and I'm sure you know they were unhappy about that. So yeah, like I don't really know because I really sympathize with players that like move to a new country and they want to represent that country in the Olympiad. I think the only like possible solution, I think this is like the soccer football World Cup rule, where like if a player plays one World Cup for a country, then that's the only country they can ever play for in terms of the World Cup. I think that's how it works there, which kind of makes sense. So what that would do is that would allow players to switch federations, but then they can't play the Olympiad for the new team if they already played, you know, represented their country before. I don't know if that's a great solution because then, it means the players can play the Olympiad, you know, which is a very nice event. Maybe there's some in between where, you know, there's some period of time where they can't play for a couple of years or something. I don't really know. It's hard. Like I feel like there's no winners. Basically.
Yeah, it's a tough issue for sure. I don't have a firm opinion, but I mean, it does make sense that the teams competing against the U.S. Would be frustrated, even if they don't have any personal issue. So another hot take you shared: every team has drama. So, and that's another one I wouldn't have thought of on my own. I mean, certainly you've heard stories over the years, but I guess you heard some in real time while you were there.
Yeah, like every player I spoke to, virtually every player I spoke to from different countries all over, different continents, had some drama on their team where people are either fighting for the Olympiad spot because they're very valuable, or while they're there, like player selection, like there's 4 boards that play per match, but there's 5 players on the team, so someone's always sitting out. And players don't always agree on who should sit out in certain matches. And then that's up to the players and the captain. And then that could be political. Sometimes players think their captains like just don't like them.
Right.
And then that's why they're like sitting out all the time. And so, yeah, also people are getting sick. Like I feel like no one really talks about this too much, but there was definitely something going around at the Olympiad because there's lots of players that were sick. And you could tell that they were sick when they were playing. And that probably affects things as well. I think this was a thing in like 2022 also.
Right.
And so that can affect stuff throughout the event. And yeah, basically long story short, it felt like every team had something going on under the surface, except maybe India, actually, to be honest. I didn't really hear about a lot of like Indian drama, like Vidit and Hari Krishna like fighting for board 4 and
right,
like I don't know, maybe there was stuff, but for the most part they seemed like they were in great spirits throughout.
Yeah. I think that Vidit, obviously very accomplished player who just played in the candidates, but there's a pecking order is getting established quickly. I mean, if I guess if Iragacy and Gukesh and Prague, if they had different personality types, maybe they'd like argue over who plays first board, but that doesn't seem to be like they seem to legit all be friends, which is good since they're taking over the chess world. And one other Olympiad reflection, of course, you got to go to the Bermuda party. So much, the topic of so much discussion here over the years here on Perpetual Chess, and so much lore dating back in chess history. But you wrote that it wasn't, at least from your perspective, maybe as wild as I would have guessed. It was more like a sort of official soiree sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, because I thought it was like you kind of had to like know where it is.
Right.
They're like gonna like keep it under wraps, but no, it was like a very much like a FIDE thing. Like they had buses for the players. And they had like staff and stuff. It was still super fun. Like they had this big venue. But I think the main thing that was fun about it was just that like everyone was there, and there's so many people at the Olympiad, and a lot of them did go to the party. And I can imagine I missed the first half, but I can imagine even if I was there would have been so many people that I wouldn't have gotten a chance to see until the party. So it's just like a one big chance for everyone to kind of socialize and see each other. So I think that was actually really, really cool. But yeah, it wasn't like so crazy. Like there was dancing, there was drinking, but like these days a lot of people had their phones out, they're taking pictures, they're taking videos, and I think this just kind of like everyone was more or less on their better behavior. So it wasn't like too wild.
That makes sense. And that was where you got a picture of Iragacy, right?
That's right. Yeah, he was there. I think Gukesh showed up as well. People were definitely swarming them all night for selfies and stuff. And they were very gracious about it. They're fine. They don't seem to get annoyed. Like even if they're clearly like walking somewhere and they just get stopped like every 2 steps, they're always happy to just stop and sign stuff or take a photo. So they're very cool.
That's pretty cool. That's good to hear that the success isn't getting to them yet. And one more question from Igor Feinstein that I've been saving until we got to the Olympiad discussion. He says, firstly, he was in Budapest and was lucky enough to catch Judith Polgar there and get her autograph. He said, Kostya kept getting in the view of videos and pictures I was trying to take of her. Why can't he let non-titled players have an unobstructed view of the greatest woman chess player ever? So how do you respond to this allegation, Kostya?
Yeah, my bad. I think this was there was this expo near the Olympiad, and I think this is where it's at. And at one point, Judith kind of spontaneously just started showing like endgame studies on the demo board.
Wow.
And naturally like a big crowd showed up, and I think they were filming, so they were doing like some content or something. But she just started showing endgame studies, and I was recording as well because I was like in media modes. I was trying to get a nice shot. And I was near the front, so I probably was blocking all kinds of people.
And you got to pick with Judith too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I met her at, she played the Simul. So she does this annual event, like the Global Chess Festival every year. It was very cool to see her. I don't think I've seen her in person before. So she was definitely very cool to meet. And she's basically like a celebrity there. She's just like royalty. Also was like in Hungary. And so it was like very nice. All the three sisters were there. So it was cool. They had a bunch of stuff alongside the Olympiad as well, like a bunch of stores and things to try. So that was fun.
Nice. So as you reflect and will continue to reflect on the Olympiad, like what do you think your standout memory will be, say 10 years from now, as you think back on it?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, definitely being inside the playing hall actually is kind of surreal. Like the first time, like everyone is there, like Dvorkovich is there. He's like meeting with someone, like some dignitary. And it's like all the players in one room. It's like Ding Liren is there, Magnus is there, Fabi, just like all these players. Is very surreal just being in there at like the start of the round. I realized like, we have 2 years until the next one and players are like working hard. So that's why I feel like from the improvement side, people have time. I feel like sometimes it's hard to get back into chess, at least from my experience, when you are feeling super rusty. It's hard to like get back into it and start training again.
That's where I am. Yeah.
But I realize it's like, you just have to like jump back into it at some point because you still have so much time. Like you got 2 years before the next Olympiad to train. Right. You're not going to play the Olympiad, but like, you'll play a tournament in 2 years. That'll be very important for you. And so, it might feel like slow right now, but I remember like Gukesh in an interview, he said like he was still thinking about Chennai 2022 when he like lost his critical game to Norderbeck. And it's like it just motivated him for this Olympiad. like oh, now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing the Gukesh that came out of that. So you've got time to work on your chess.
Well said. Yeah, it's such a fun tournament. And inspiring even for those of us who are pretty unlikely to end up playing in it. There'd have to be some sort of, we're going to need another pandemic and, we don't want that. All right. Last thing, Kostya. So you guys have a book coming out?
That's right. Yes, it's been long in the making, but we compiled a collection of some of the best annotated games of players throughout the different cohorts. And basically put them all into one book. So Jesse basically did most of the legwork, like picking all the games. And then we wrote up a couple of chapters at the front, like some instructional stuff on like how to analyze your games. I wrote a chapter on like how to use engines and common pitfalls and things like that. Jesse wrote a very nice chapter on just like the process of reflecting on your games and things like that. But basically the book is essentially just a collection of annotated games of players from different levels. It's going to be released soon. We're hoping that it will inspire people to start annotating their games, which we believe is obviously a core part of improving your chess, is just going through your games, reviewing them, and then just writing down like a couple notes, a couple thoughts on the game, some variations. I think that's just a key part of just like learning not to make the same mistakes over and over again. We're hoping they'll both teach people like what a good annotated game looks like, but also just motivate them to do it themselves. Because we start off low, like the book starts from 0 to 300, and those annotations, like they're filled with mistakes, but it's still kind of inspirational because you can imagine the players that are doing it, they're like annotating their games for the first time. And so if you're in that level, then I think it's also, kind of pushes you to do it yourself, I would hope.
That's a fantastic book idea. That sounds great. What does it have a title?
We're calling it How to Analyze Your Games.
You got to get chess in there somewhere, Kostya.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Pro tip.
I'll talk to them about it. Maybe in the subtitle. Can it be in the subtitle?
It probably can, yeah. Or just how to analyze your chess games might work.
Chess has to analyze your games. So it's so clean. It's so
Yeah, it
crisp.
is. All right. We'll workshop offline, or
Maybe a Chess Dojo guide. I don't know.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But it sounds fantastic. Excellent. All right. Well, Kostya, I know you're busy. Probably head still spinning a bit from all the travel and being back in St. Louis. Any closing thoughts until we reconvene next time?
No, thanks for having me on. I'm going to just keep training and working, and people know where to find me. I'll be streaming most likely for Dojo, or making videos for our YouTube channel. That's it. I'm gonna lay low for a bit and train, and then hopefully play some tournaments in a couple months. And I'm gonna try to keep improving. I'll be playing online though, so maybe the online will give a sense of where I'm at.
Cool. Sounds good. And yeah, I hope you're able to keep the Substack going. I'm super excited for it as an easy way to follow your journey. And as you know,
yeah. I'm going to keep that updated as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And I'll link to all the ways to keep up with Kostya, and listeners looking for a community should, as always, definitely check out the Chess Dojo. All right, Kostya, great to chat as always. And welcome back to the US.
Thanks for having me on, Ben.
Take care.